right, everyone. Joe Biden has selected Kamala Harris for his vice presidential nominee, and I'm just like, why can't anything interesting happen in this race? Honestly, this is the craziest year in the history of years. Everything about 2020 is crazy, except for Joe Biden is the boring, predictable Democratic candidate that the DNC handpicked, and Kamala Harris is the boring, predictable vice presidential nominee because she couldn't hack it in the primaries at all. The woman dropped out of the primaries before there even was a vote to drop out. Kamala Harris, Democratic senator power player, can't even get to the first Democratic primary, and she is going to be Joe Biden's vice presidential nominee because she fits the ticket of someone who is a woman and someone who is black, and those are the only two things that matter when it comes to the Democrats picking a presidential and a vice presidential nominee. That's it. That's it. They hand-selected Joe Biden to be their presidential nominee, old white dude that's been around Washington, D.C. for about 1 million years and has never really done much of anything. And, of course, Kamala comes right in, swooping in to fulfill the minority oppressed part of the Democratic ticket. And so what I thought we would do in this video is I'm not going to talk about articles coming out right now saying, oh, Kamala's the nominee, 5 things you need to know about Kamala, all this crap that's about to happen around this vice presidential nomination. What I want to do is look at this Vox article from December. Kamala Harris's decline in the polls explained. And I want us to think about why Vox thinks that Kamala Harris was a horrible presidential contender in the Democratic primary. And let's line that up with what Vox and many other mainstream publications are about to write about Kamala over and over and over again, basically placing her on the pedestal of the best thing about the Biden campaign for president is the black woman who he nominated for vice president, and really any black woman would have done, but he happened to pick this one, and so this is where we're going to go with. So we're going to read this article and think about that, but before we do, guys, I'm trying to grow the channel. I'm really trying to get to 100,000 subscribers before Election Day. If YouTube stops interfering and shadow banning me, which is what I'm pretty sure they've been doing for the last 3 days because everything is way down from the normal views I get, the normal subs I get, all that good stuff. So if YouTube stops interfering, I really think I can make it to 100,000 by Election Day, but who knows? I do need your help. If you like the content I'm doing, please make sure you subscribe to the channel, give it a thumbs up, all that, turn on notifications too, because, not that guarantees anything, but, maybe my stuff will show up for you. Who the hell knows? All right, let's read this article from last December from Vox. Kamala Harris's decline in the polls explained. Data suggests some of her supporters have migrated to candidates who were previously their second choice. After a blockbuster debate performance in June, Senator Kamala Harris shot up in the national polls, peaking at 15% voter support. Cut to 5 months later, and she's announced her decision to drop out after polling in single digits. Her departure, which comes before several candidates who are polling behind her, prompts a major question. What happened? Now, what I remember about Kamala Harris dropping out of the primary was it was because her campaign was grossly mismanaged. That's why she dropped out of the primary. Don't listen to all the media outlets oh, misogyny, oh, racism, oh, all those things. No. It's because her campaign was grossly mismanaged and they ran out of money. That's why she dropped out. But let's keep going. According to pollsters and political experts Vox spoke to, part of Harris's polling decline was due to the fact that it's difficult to sustain a spike after a viral moment. That's the best they have. And Harris didn't do enough to fully capitalize on it. Harris's subsequent debate performances, for example, were not even consistent enough to maintain that surge. And this is the person they picked for the VP nomination, right? That they can't even maintain any sort of spike or show up to the remaining debates. Because let's be honest, she did not show up to the remaining debates at all. She would laugh every once in a while. She is kind of like the perfect running mate for Joe Biden, though, now that I'm thinking about it, because both of them, they always try to play off stuff in this folksy way that comes across as just woefully inauthentic. I think really inauthentic for her. Maybe more passably inauthentic for Biden because, Biden doesn't really know where he is half the time. And so for him pretending to say something, it's like going to be much more likely to be construed as real life because he's not all there. But she is all there. She just really sucked at it. Let's keep going. What this polling swing also indicates, however, is that Harris, who's still a new face to many voters, has had trouble growing her core base of support beyond what she already had ahead of the June debates. Okay, I'm sorry, that's BS. The media had been pushing her for months at that point. The DNC is still pushing her. They're going to be pushing her for many more months. Like, everyone knows who Kamala Harris is. They just don't like her. Among the reasons for this, her less defined ideological positioning made it tougher to carve out a niche with voters, and assumed and coded assumptions about coded assumptions. All these talk about dog whistles. I mean, who is precise enough with that speech that they're constantly worried about, oh, let's play this dog whistle and that dog whistle, and oh my god, like all these dog whistles floating around. Like, seriously, if you're doing that, you have way too much time on your hands and you need to get a life and start focusing on things that are significantly more relevant to probably giving you a healthy and happy experience. Coded assumptions about electability also affected her campaign. Additionally, as detailed by the New York Times report, her team struggling to find an effective campaign strategy as their fundraising reserves continue to dwindle. Okay, so this is coded language, or a dog whistle, if you will, that about her campaign was piss poorly run and they ran out of money. And that's the real reason that she dropped out, but we want to make it about all racism and all misogyny and all these things. And so that's what we're going to say it is, when in fact, the campaign just ran out of money. That's what happened. Let's keep going. Harris alluded to this problem herself in a Medium post announcing her decision to drop out. I've taken stock and have looked at it from every angle, and over the last few days have come to one of the hardest decisions of my life, Harris wrote. My campaign for president simply doesn't have the financial resources we need to continue. In good faith, I can tell you, my supporters and volunteers, that I have a path forward, I can't tell you, my supporters and volunteers, that I have a path forward if I don't believe I do. Exactly, Kamala. Coupled with fundraising, her central struggle appeared to be a lack of consistent connection with voters. Because her bump was based largely on one event, it wasn't really baked in, and voters looked around for another candidate that might excite their interest, Monmouth University polling director Patrick Murray told Vox. Listen, man, if she couldn't sustain their interest, then why? I just don't understand. I think this was a horrible choice for a vice presidential candidate if they have any desire to win at all, which, like, side note, I'm not sure they actually do have a desire to win. I'm not sure they care much about winning nowadays. But if winning was the goal, certainly this selection for VP did not help achieve that goal at all. Let's keep going. But the bigger problem is that she did not have any kind of base in the early states, and that would have helped her sustain momentum in Iowa and New Hampshire, if not nationally. So I'm going to tell you this. I don't even think Kamala Harris had a campaign office in New Hampshire. I don't remember her having an office. I don't remember her supporters being anywhere in New Hampshire. She did not show up in New Hampshire. I mean, she came for the big events that I went to, like the New Hampshire State Democratic Convention. She was at that. And then she dropped out before any of the primaries started, but she did not have any sort of operation here in New Hampshire, and I strongly suspect she didn't really have much of anything in Iowa either, which was actually the problem. According to YouGov Blue senior political analyst John Ray, 5% of Democratic primary voters definitely chose Harris as their number one candidate before her viral debate moment in June, which means the polling slump she experienced brought her back to where she was before, roughly. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Below are three factors experts have said contributed to Harris's decline in voter support over the last few months. Her declines have corresponded with gains by Buttigieg, Warren, and Biden. Oh, isn't that ironic, Vox? Isn't that ironic that gains by Biden? And I don't know what gains they're possibly talking about, because the man didn't really gain much. The man was handpicked by the Democratic Party to be their nominee. Who knows what would have happened if they had actually let the primaries play out, which is what the Republicans did. Of course, we know now that it probably would have been a giant cluster F, and probably, boded better for them in the choice that they made before the pandemic. But if the pandemic hadn't happened, and they had let the primaries play out exactly the way they should have, it would have been Bernie Sanders every day of the week. That's who would have won. If for some reason that hadn't manifested, I think Buttigieg could have easily slid in there and taken it, but it probably would have been Bernie had the Democratic Party not gotten involved, and I don't know. these days I really don't know which is a better choice, but this is where we are today. All right, next reason. As a black woman, Harris needed to field assumptions about electability in a way no one has. Now, let's get ready for it. I'm not going to read all this because, frankly, it's probably boring and irrelevant. But, let's get ready for it because women's groups have already started putting out, they started doing this over the weekend, that if you go after Biden's VP, you are a racist and you are a misogynist. They started doing it before the weekend, so obviously they knew what was up, right? I mean, everyone knew Biden was going to pick a woman of color as his VP. That was just the way it is. But they've already started putting this out there that no attacks on the vice presidential nominee are allowed because she's a woman and we can't have that. I mean, come on. She's running to be vice president of the United States. People should be able to ask some questions without getting accused of being a racist and a misogynist. But I think we all know that's not what's going to happen. And reason number 3 that Vox has come up with to indicate that Kamala Harris just isn't the right presidential candidate was she pitched herself as a coalition building candidate, but hasn't been able to carve out a specific niche. Now, I have no idea what they mean by that, so let's read. Though Harris has sought to build a broad coalition of voters, something she succeeded at during her Senate run, experts have said her muddled ideological positioning prevented her from establishing a specific lane of support. Harris is viewed as more moderate than multiple leading candidates, has also tried to court progressives with limited success. This is, I think if Biden was smart, he should have picked Elizabeth Warren. If he absolutely had to pick a woman to get that oppression card, he should have picked Elizabeth Warren. Now, I know that, technically, I suppose technically, with her Native American blood, whatever, 1/1000th of whatever, I guess technically she would be in the woman of color category, but, let's not kid ourselves. She wasn't going to get chosen because she's not black. That's the way it is. But I think she actually would have been the smarter choice in terms of courting the progressive voters, courting the people that are pissed off that Bernie's not the nominee. That would have been a much smarter choice than Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, her record in California about the number of people that she has locked up and being a part of that whole system, that is going to do this entire campaign in. I don't know why they would put in the middle of a national discussion about defunding the police, abolishing the police. Why on earth would they pick a former Attorney General of California? That makes no sense. It only makes sense in the land where the Democrats don't really care about winning. This is like they're lobbing it in this year. They're not even trying anymore. It's so ridiculous. So, yeah, Kamala Harris is vice presidential nominee under Joe Biden. Whatever. It's not going to go anywhere. Trump's going to kick their asses. I just hope they have the debates because, really, the debates are going to be maybe the one shining ray of at least entertainment value that I think we're going to get in this election because everything else is boring. It's not even worth talking about. I don't even know why I'm making this video. But you've watched till the end, so I guess joke's on you on that one.